Hi everyone, I'm Nurse Nettie and welcome to my new channel. I'm going to talk about my nursing career over the last 26 years and I'm going to do it in 26 minutes. Fingers crossed. So I started my training in 1998. I was on the Project 2000 course, which meant I had to do 18 months general nursing and then the last 18 months were in my specialty, which was paediatrics. I remember very clearly my first placement and I'd been allocated to a male medical ward. I was horrified that I was given a male medical ward because after all, I'd signed up to do paediatric nursing and I didn't really understand, why do I need to do adults? Anyway, on my first day, I walked onto the ward and there were 3 crash bells that had actually gone off in the first hour. I didn't really have a clue what was happening. There were people running everywhere. There were people shouting, alarms, buzzers. To me, I thought, what have I signed up for? Anyway, later on in the shift, the nurse in charge spoke to me and she explained that it's not normally like that. I just started on a particularly busy shift. So by the end of the 3 weeks, I actually really enjoyed the placement because I'd got to know the patients really well and I'd built up some basic nursing skills. I just want to talk about another placement I had in my first year, and that was on a mental health unit, and I'd been allocated to work there for 3 weeks. Again, you can imagine I'm thinking, why am I going to a mental health placement? I was working on a rehab ward and it wasn't uncommon for the patients to be taken into town on the bus just for a few hours as a day trip. So I was on the bus with another nurse and we'd taken 2 patients and I was talking to this male patient. We were having a bit of a laugh and then all of a sudden he started laughing, almost inappropriate actually. So I said to him, what are you laughing at? Anyway, his face looked very serious and he said, the voices in my head. Oh my goodness, I was like, what shall I do? I don't know what to say to him. I just carried on talking as normal, but inside I was quite scared. I mean, I knew I was safe, but it's quite scary when you're not used to dealing with mental health. One more patient that I distinctly remember was this lady. She was sitting in the lounge, she was reading or looking through a book. She called me over and she said, do you want to have a look at my book? So I said, yeah, show me it. Anyway, she was flicking through the pages and to my absolute horror, there were pictures of cats in there, but the eyes had been like really crossed out and you could see the force behind how much she'd crossed them because there were almost rips in the pages. Again, I didn't really know what to do or what to say. So I just carried on looking through the book with her. So my mental health placement was, it was interesting. I did learn a lot and I can see why I had to do it as a student nurse. Because, you know, over the years, I've actually looked after several patients with mental health problems. And looking back, you know, I can still remember how the nurses in the mental health hospital spoke to the patients. So it was good experience for me. Finished mental health and then I had a few more other placements. And then finally I was in paediatrics, my last 18 months, and I was in the place that I wanted to be. I was allocated to a general medical ward. So I walked on the ward and everything just felt right to me. It was very noisy, it was chaotic, there were toddlers running around, alarms, buzzers, but it was just a very different feel. And I kind of felt at home actually. So I built up a lot of experience in my 18 months. I did other placements outside of that ward, but that in fact was my favourite ward. I remember always offering to help out in HDU because I just couldn't believe the complexities of, critically ill children and babies. You don't fully understand their conditions until you're actually, working in it. So I was building up a lot of clinical skills and also a lot of knowledge. So I absolutely loved my paediatric placements and that ward in particular. 2001, I started my first job on a general ward, and all of a sudden I was like, where's my confidence gone? I'd been so confident as a student nurse, and then walking on the ward with your uniform on, and doctors were talking to you, patients, like families were talking to you as if you were this experienced nurse. Hang on, I was a student like yesterday, and now I'm a nurse, and you're expecting me to answer all these questions. So it is very nerve-wracking once you qualify, but actually your confidence does soon grow, and you need about a year probably to consolidate your training. So I did stay on that ward for a year and just found my feet. It's a bit like when you learn to drive, actually. You don't really learn until you've passed your test and you're going solo. 2002 until 2008, I stayed on that ward, and I was a E grade, which is the equivalent of a senior band 5 now. I was developing my clinical skills, and also I was absorbing everything. I was taking every opportunity to learn. And I'm sure people thought I was really cocky because anytime a situation came up, I'd be like, oh, can I do that? I'll do that. But, that's what I'm like. I'm really inquisitive. I want to learn and I want to do well. I was also developing my leadership skills. So I was given opportunities, or rather I probably took the opportunities and asked for them, to start taking charge of the ward. I know in adult nursing that probably 6 months after you're qualified, you might find yourself in charge of a ward, but in paediatrics it is very different, and normally it probably would be a year to 2 years. I don't know what any of you think. If you want to leave a comment, I'll have a look. So the other really important role that I took on was the champion for infection control. So the trust had just introduced these roles, and it was at the time of the bare below the elbows. And of course I was going to offer to do it. Why wouldn't I? It was another opportunity for me. I built up a lot of credibility and respect in that role. It was quite a tough job because you had to be assertive. I'd do weekly audits, and I can remember I'd walk down the corridor, people would see me and they'd pretend to wash their hands using the hand gel. People we were laughing about it together, but they did respect me in that role, and it was an important role. One time I remember is when the chief exec came onto the ward, and she had a big diamond ring on her finger. So I said to her, oh, I'm going to have to put you in my audit. And actually she was really nice. And it's not really every day that still a relatively junior nurse, would feel comfortable in challenging that. I mean, that was my role. It was important. It is all about patient safety. So I really enjoyed that role. So it's the year 2008 now, and I finally get my first job as senior staff nurse, so band 6. And I am so proud of myself. It's what I'd been working towards, and I was finally working alongside nurses who in fact had been my mentors when I was a brand new student on the ward. So I felt a sense of achievement. One of the main tasks that we were faced with was when it was decided that the two paediatric wards were going to merge. So you had one ward that was oncology, surgical and orthopaedic, and then the other ward was medical and HDU. So it was decided we'll have one pool of nurses and we would run as one ward. I had my reservations about this, and I am a very vocal person, so I voiced these concerns. And then actually I realised I'm a band 6 nurse now. I've got to be a role model. I need to lead by example and support these nurses. Nurses that were working on the wards, they'd interviewed and applied for a job on one ward or the other, and now we were saying, actually, you're going to work across the floor. It was difficult, and like I said, leading by example. I had to work on the oncology ward with surgery and orthopaedics, and I do not like orthopaedics. It is the one area that for some reason I just don't get it. It seems really complicated to me, so I'd always shied away from it. It was a difficult time, but it was very successful. It took a while, and some nurses did leave, but they might have left anyway. We don't know that. So I felt really proud to have been part of the nursing team who actually took a lead role in making it happen. So I loved being a band 6. 2011 and I'm a band 7. I'm working as the paediatric ambulatory care sister. Where shall I start? It was a big step for me. I had 5 services to manage now, and I did not have a clue how I was going to do it. Why hadn't I made a plan? I got there on my first day and thought, how do I manage all these services? Anyway, it soon clicked in. I have to be visible, and that is really important. I think that is what nurses want. That's what all staff want. They want to see their managers. So I walked around my 5 services every day. So I was looking after children's clinic, the assessment unit, the daybed unit, the child development centre, and finally the paediatric emergency department. Now that department didn't actually exist when I started, and I had to take a lead role in setting that up. It was all very bewildering to me, and although I knew that that was part of the role, in reality, when I had to do it, it was actually really scary because I'm now the lead in this. Yes, it's not my sole responsibility. I'm working alongside others, and I'm fortunate enough that I did know a lot of the people that I was working with. Band 7, it was scary stuff. I remember being in a meeting and I had my bleep, and I was really worried. What if my bleep goes off? Do I go out and make a phone call? Shall I ignore it? I don't know what to do. So I took the batteries out, actually. I soon overcame that, and if my bleep went off, I went and answered it. So ambulatory care sister was a really good first band 7 job for me. 2011, 10 months later, and I'm the paediatric ward manager. And I think my face says it all, because this is a job that I really wanted. Ever since qualifying and working on the ward, I knew that one day I would be the ward manager. I am very ambitious and I'm very driven. So for me, that was my ultimate goal at that time. Starting on the ward, it was a whole new ball game for me. I was working and managing nurses, particularly the senior nurses, that I'd known them for 14 years. We'd become friends. We had socialised. I now had to manage them. I put up boundaries because, I didn't want them or myself to be put in any awkward situations. And although it was difficult at times, they did learn to respect and trust me as their manager. I've got many stories to tell from the paediatric ward, so I will tell them in other videos. So please subscribe to my channel and remember to ring the bell. 2019 and welcome to the adult world. I'd secured a secondment opportunity as matron in elderly care and specialist medicine. I needed a new challenge. I'd been on the paediatric ward for so many years. I felt it was time to move on, do something totally different, and what could be more different? So it was a really tough interview. So I was so proud when I'd actually been given that opportunity. I wasn't going to let them down. Like I said, I am ambitious. I'm very driven. I guess the interview was setting me up for what the role was, because I have never been to so many meetings in my life. Some days were just meeting after meeting, and I was going all over the hospital. I had several services to manage that they weren't all in one little corner of the hospital. So I remember one day I did 17,000 steps, which I thought was pretty impressive. It was a tough job, very tough job, and it was definitely a steep learning curve for me, and I enjoyed it, but the secondment came to the end and I went back to paediatrics. 2020 and COVID is in full swing and I'm back on the paediatric ward. It was difficult for me to go back to the ward because I'd moved on, the ward had moved on. Although having said that, staff were really pleased to see me back. However, for me, I wasn't happy on the ward anymore. I needed to do something different. So I had to start looking for other jobs. Also, the ward needed a new, fresh pairs of eyes are always good for a service. And it was good for me to rethink what is my next move in my career. So while I was looking for a job, I contacted our occupational health department because I knew the COVID vaccines were soon to be coming in, and I just asked, is there a role for me? I'm looking for a job. I don't really want to be in paediatrics anymore. Is there anything you can give me? Well, I've always said it, you've got to grab opportunities, put yourself out there. So I knew the occupational health lead really well. We'd done a lot of work together with the flu campaigns over the years and some other projects. He actually said to me, we're setting up a COVID vaccination clinic. You could come and help set that up and manage it. Oh, I was so excited to do this because not being in a non-clinical role when you're more senior, I didn't really feel I was playing my part in the whole COVID pandemic. And you drive home and people are clapping. I felt a bit of a fraud actually. So if I could get in and help with the COVID vaccine centre, then that was great stuff. It was fun setting it up because we could literally set it up how we wanted it. The complex part was the actual vaccines because it was a brand new vaccine and we had to learn how to handle it, how to store it. And I can remember when it first came out, and you had to handle it very gently. And when you'd actually diluted it, I can remember sitting there and you had to like tilt it very slowly for a minute. And that was for each vial, and then you would draw it up and it could only be stored for so long. So it was very complex handling this vaccine. But we'd finally set up and we were ready for our first patients, which actually were staff, because it was a staff vaccine clinic. There was a real buzz in the clinic. People were excited. They were also anxious. People just wanted this vaccine. People that came tried to cut corners. They didn't fill in the consent forms and then got annoyed and angry when we had to send them away and tell them to fill it in. We had to be careful. It was an unknown vaccine. Doing that job, I did it for the 3 months until I'd secured another position outside of the trust. I did it for that length of time, and in fact, it was probably one of my most favourite jobs that I've done. 2021, and I've left the trust that I've trained in and worked in for the last 23 years. It was a sad time for me, but it was time to do something new, a different trust, meet different people, and I was to work in a community hospital as the ward manager. Ward management it's my thing. I love it because of the variety of work that you do. And some people say it is actually one of the toughest jobs because you're drawn from your senior managers and you're drawn from the staff that you're managing. So it is a tough job, but it is the job I enjoy. So I'm on a adult community rehab ward. I knew nobody. I literally knew nobody when I started there. And I had to build up relationships with a whole new team of people. This was actually a bit scary for me. I am an outgoing person, but sometimes it can take me a while to actually get to know some people. However, as the ward manager, I was managing a team and I just had to do it. So it was a lovely, lovely ward, and the staff, I've never worked with such a hardworking team. I had one-to-ones with every team member when I started. I think they were quite surprised, and this was not only my opportunity to get to know them, but also for them to get to know me. They didn't know who I was. They had just heard that there's a paediatric nurse coming. What does a paediatric nurse know about managing an adult ward? So I had to prove myself. I had to earn their trust in order to get respect from them. And the way I did it was, yes, I'm not an adult nurse. I can't do any of your clinical duties. For example, I can't help you with your drugs round. But what I can do is help you with basic care of patients. I can work as an HCA. I can support you guys who work incredibly hard, I must say. They are the hardest workers I've ever seen on that ward. I soon was getting my hands dirty, and I remember the first time I offered to take this lady to the toilet, and somebody said to me, "Oh, don't forget to take a pad with you." So I was like, "Oh, where do I get the pads from?" So she got me a pad, and I looked at it and I was like, "Which way round does it go?" So she laughed at me, this HCA. She relayed that story to others. It didn't bother me because it showed, I think it proved to them that I can ask questions. I don't know everything. I'm here to learn from them and they can learn from me as well. So it was hard work to get their trust, but I do feel, well, I know that I got their trust. So my current job, I started in 2022 and I'm senior discharge facilitator. Essentially, I'm helping to facilitate discharges into the community. It is very, very different to what I've ever done before, and I would say it is disappointing because it is more of an admin role. There's not really much patient contact, and I do really miss that. So I am more office based, and I've met a lot of new people. I've learned so much, and it's kind of closed the loop from when I worked as matron in elderly care, where we were desperate for beds and to get patients discharged home because that's where they should be. And then working in the community hospital, obviously some patients from the acute trust go for rehab. So I'm a bit of the middleman, if you like. It is a different job and I'm learning, but I'm not sure it is the job for me because, like I say, I want to still be with patients. That has been my 26 years nursing journey in 26 minutes. So I really hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.